I cannot hear the music. It is absolutely ThursdAGE. Which, you know, I'm sure they will.
Look behind Owen's head. Music because looks like we can't hear Troy.
We can't hear Troy. Yep, we can't hear Troy.
Fix that. That's why we do. This if people can hear me. Hi, folks.
Can anyone hear Troy?
Do you care? Can you? I'm in an 80s mood today.
Very clearly.
Barely, they say. Barely, barely. Can't have that. Can we? Cannot. How do you like me now? How's that? I'm feeling quite loud. Like 5%. Robert brings up a good point. What if you could never hear me? And I was just a figment of your imagination.
So if you are in fact not just a disembodied voice, but a disembodied Troy entirely, and us thinking we hear you has always just been in our head, then that also means that time I met you at Gen Con seemed to be in my head, and that time that you passed me the fries seemed to be in my head. And I'm willing to accept that. That's possible. You might entirely be a figment of our collective imaginations, but if that's the case, what difference does it make? Or maybe you are the Tyler Durden for my version of Fight Club. So it's Game Club. And the first question of Game Club is, when can we get together? It's not don't talk about Game Club, because it's scheduling. It's all about scheduling.
I love Crystal. Troy's an elaborate conspiracy. Yeah, there's some truth to that. How's audio now? Is my audio an elaborate silence?
We were told better keep going.
Better keep going. Okay. It is not often in my lifetime that I have been invited to continue to speak. That doesn't stop me, of course, but
Well, we don't normally invite you to continue to speak because we're in slack-jawed awe at the wonder of your words. So we're simply incapable of any cogent thought.
right, yeah, distressing. Oi, oi, oi! I can hear faint murmurs, murmurs, murmurs. Let's see. Why?
I don't know, Troy.
You know,
It might be the man trying to keep you down. So we can't hear you because again, isn't it always the man? So I'm going to tell a story about the man. There was a place in Seattle that had a hot sauce called the Man. And when you ordered something, the owner of the establishment would come by with a little bowl of it and a little tiny spoon and say, "Would you like to meet the man?" It has been suggested that the wrong mic has been selected.
There is, yeah. I wonder if everything else is muted. There are no other mics, which is weird. I'm hearing myself.
And if we have to, I'll just repeat everything you say.
I like
Troy likes that. He thinks that'll be a really fun show. Now he's laughing. Now he's snorting. Now he's engaged in stony silence, which I can repeat, but it would be uninteresting.
Absolutely uninteresting.
Well, yeah, that was a surprising echo.
Oh, so we are
Sounded
broadcasting from. You can tell the story. I will tell it through you as I try to figure out why. Hi.
Yeah, that's the reverb issue apparently that plagued Crystal and Steve on Monday.
Yeah. Something is happening.
We have lots of real content for you this week, folks. That's why the technical issues are such a problem.
Hang tight. Hang loose.
We've only officially been on the air 6 minutes, so if we were coming over for dinner, you wouldn't really think of us as late yet.
That's true. Very true.
Me makes. Oh, how's that? That sounds. How is?
Caption, I want to believe, is a poster on his wall. So,
Okay.
Crystal, do you want to tell us about this piece of art we're all staring at? Because I can repeat you too, you know. Troy is back, but as a celestial entity who sounds haunting. So apparently that did something. I said that if we were late for dinner, you wouldn't be worried yet, and Crystal said I would already be worried, and of course that's possibly true. But Crystal lives. To reach Crystal for dinner, you have to go down one hill and up another, and if there is any ice anywhere, since there are fewer sand trucks than playgrounds in Seattle, it can get dangerous fast. It's also rainy frequently. I have more than once back when I was living in Seattle and driving to Crystal's house, literally stopped and pulled over the side of the road to get my bearings so that I didn't take a turn off the middle of a bridge.
Larry, I think it's your medications. Wow, I can hear that myself. So that is obnoxious. How about now?
Something goes wrong. The same appears to hold true of live streams. And we're trying to be on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And I know that it sounds like it ought to be easy, and all the instructions say it ought to be easy. And I can't do it at all, which is why Troy does the hard part, and we can all point and blame him.
You know, the issue really is...
I'm told that that's much better.
I think I unbettered it, because I can hear it. I unbettered it.
Why would you unbetter it? I'm sure you're doing fine.
We've got a collaborative workspace, and within that collaborative workspace, people think, oh, yeah, I'm just going to click on stuff until it works.
Apparently, it was good. Then the reverb is back. Now it's back to being good.
Okay, I'm going to try one more thing.
More reverb. Sounds like a demon belching up another demon. So say something you haven't said before, so that we can know what moment they are, right? Like say a code word.
Code word is still a little. I can hear it. I can hear it.
All right. Have people heard the code word? I can hear it from Troy.
Code word. I can hear it.
The code word is code word.
The code word is code word. We're gonna mute this.
Crystal says that she hears it. So we might be good.
They're hearing my my disco voice. My disco god voice is what I call that.
Well, that just means that you'll have to get down and book.
Oh, I boogie so hard. How's that sounding? A better or worse? No, wait, code word. Yeah, I think part of the problem here is that I'm a goofball, and every time I ask for help, I'm like, "Hey, yabba dabba doo," and people don't know what the heck that means. Say something for me, Owen.
I am told that we just lost Owen KC Stephens, which isn't great.
Really. We didn't really.
Did we not?
No,
Am I there?
you're there.
Can people hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were.
Well, if they
Now Troy sounds great. Troy now sounds
Okay.
great. You know, we're just gonna roll with it. I think that
Yeah,
there's
quick.
probably a little echo, but we're just gonna keep it on. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. You know, as I said, we're community-based stuff. We like to bring people in, and we run a little podcast network for the uplifting of marginalized voices within the greater Cascadia region, and many of those folks are very good. I'm not going to touch a thing. Thank you, Charlotte. The echo is epic. Yeah. And so people like to, you know, they come in and kind of click around on some stuff, and it just takes one click to turn this whole operation into well, what you have now, which is, you know, epic Echo Hewitt and Owen KC Stephens. We're hanging out. It's a Fantasy Age stream. It's called ThursdAGE, which that was a name you came up with.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't serious.
Oh, you can't play with me like that.
Seriously, folks, the way this happened was we decided we were going to do a stream, and Troy said we'll have to come up with a name, and I said that's fine. We'll come up with something. It's not like we can just call it ThursdAGE. And Troy said, nope, we're stuck with it now. We're now calling it ThursdAGE. And I'm like, no, we can't. That's stupid. We can't call it Thursday. And so he went to the rest of the company, and of course they all backed Troy. So here we are on ThursdAGE.
Here we are, and it was all done sort of via text, and so he couldn't hear my squeal of delight, my thunderous echo of joy, and yeah. So we've been doing this for some time now. I want to say we've been doing this for about 40 months.
That's certainly what my beard looks like in a couple of the previous ThursdAGE episodes.
The beard is epic. But yeah, so we come to you every Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific, and we stream on Facebook and YouTube. And once in a while, and someday in the future, we will also stream on Twitch. We're getting there. We're getting there. You know, another audio issue. But today, we got a good show. We really do.
Got a great show.
Oh, wow, David. You know, if we have to move to Friday, we will call it ThursdAGE.
I don't know if we would have switched to ThursdAGE because that makes us sound fried. Now, if we do one right after a convention, if we ever go back to in-person conventions again, then ThursdAGE might be exactly what we should do. In fact, if in 2022 we do Gen Con or something, you and I might do ThursdAGE live during the convention and show people how fried we are. So if people like that idea, drop us a line. But that is more than a year away before we would possibly be doing that.
I really do want to do a live program. I think that'd be a heck of a lot of fun. ThursdAGE with hams. Yes. Thank you, Robert Emerson. And, you know, because of the audio stuff, I wasn't able to say, Larry, good to see you. David, thank you so much. Crystal Frazier, always a delight. Guinevere is here. Who else we have? Charlotte is here. Did I say Larry already? Larry's here. Brian is here. Brian Irving. Wow, yeah, we got a crew. And thank you all for hanging out. And, yeah, we got some people. And thank you for suffering through the audio stuff. I know that it'll be a little weird, but, you know, that's what you get.
And Alex Goodness is here.
Hey, Alex. Good to see you. Giving us a little wave. So, shall we just dive right in? All the
let's start talking about some stuff.
Let's start talking about some stuff.
So, it is not a secret. It has been mentioned by Chris Pramus, the company's president, on his State of the Company beginning of the year blog post that we are working on a Fantasy Age core rulebook. And some people immediately have questions, and those are reasonable, so we're going to address some of those. The first one is, don't we already have a core rulebook? and no. We have the Fantasy Age basic rulebook, which, as the name would suggest, gives you all the basic rules you need to play the game. And we released it a few years ago. And it's a great game, and I love it very much. And it is my excitement with things like the stunt system in the basic rulebook that caused me to say yes when I was asked if I wanted to be the Fantasy Age developer. But that was one of the very early attempts to make the age system anything sort of fungibles that we can pick up and use for different things, because previously been used for the Dragon Age RPG. And in the years since then, there has been some emergent behavior. There's been some things we've noticed because we've got thousands of people playing probably tens of thousands of games. And they give us feedback, and we get to play more, and we can take that feedback and look at it. So there are some things we would like to change. That immediately leads to the next question, which we frequently get asked, which is this Fantasy Age 2nd edition? And the answer is no. This is not a new edition. Nicholas Morrow is here, and it's not the very end of the stream. Hi, Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas.
There are things that we are changing, but my intention is for the Fantasy Age core rulebook to be something that you can take your basic rulebook and put it on the back burner of your case of gaming books, put the core rulebook in its place, and all the other Fantasy Age things that you own will still work with the core rulebook. And that leads people immediately to ask the very reasonable question, how is this a revision or a update or an improvement if I can use all my old stuff? And so I'm going to give you some examples of the sorts of things we're doing. And then we'll talk about opportunity for you to give us some of your feedback here in a little bit. So, for example, currently Fantasy Age has 3 character classes. You've got mages, rogues, and warriors, and that's it. And that's because those are all very flexible classes, and you can pick talents and increase your ability scores and pick up specializations. Example, says Crystal, so that you can customize your characters. So you can make your warrior, a cunning swashbuckler or a raging barbarian or a stern knight. Those are all things you can build towards. However, we are going to add a 4th class in the Fantasy Age core rulebook. Now, I'm not going to tell people what that class is yet. I want to save that for just a bit so that people who are going to be playtesting it, and we'll talk about that in a minute, get to have the first fun with that. But I do want to talk a little bit about what it isn't and how adding it does not make this an incompatible game. So first of all, the new class is not a cleric. There are a lot of people who feel like the thing to do is add a divine spellcasting class separate from the mage, which they tend to think of based largely on the nomenclature as a arcane casting class, borrowing divisions that really trace back to Dungeons and Dragons. Fantasy Age isn't Dungeons and Dragons. It's obviously inspired by a lot of the same memes through fantasy gaming society, sort of the zeitgeist or zeitgeek, if you will. But we still feel that having a single class that is the primary spellcasting class and letting players and GMs decide where that power comes from is the best way to design that game. So we are actually adding a 4th class that has a non-spellcasting focus that is separate from being sneaky and stabbing things or just being bold and chopping them in half. But the fact that we're adding a class does not invalidate anything that came before. So since that class is going to work the same way, it will still have access to stunts, it'll build talents, it will pick up specializations, much like when we added new talents and specializations in the Fantasy Age Companion, and that did not invalidate like the bestiary or layers or any of that. The fact that we're adding a new class and we are also taking some specializations and some focuses and such that have been in the Companion and moving them to the core rulebook, and we're cleaning things up a little bit. All of that will still work with all your existing content. As another, Crystal Fraser says, Zeitgeek, copyright Owen Stephens. I can't
Solid,
believe
yeah.
I'm the first person to say that. Someone else must have come up with a Zeitgeek, and it may have entered the Zeitgeek by now. So if, for example, we say, hey, we've looked at the combat option to fight purely defensively, take your standard action, fight defensively, and not take any offensive actions, and we have decided, based on emergent behavior and more playtesting and seeing how often people use it, that it's just not useful enough. So that option is simply going to give you a bigger bonus to your defense. Doing that just means anytime anyone uses that option now with the core rulebook, they will get that increased defensive value. And since monsters will get it and players will get it and NPCs will get it, you can take the existing bestiary and that monster can use this combat option. And it doesn't matter as far as being able to play the game, whether you're using the basic rule book or the core rule book. Now, you want everyone to be using the same rule book. If you've got some people using the basic rule book and some people using the core rule book, you would then have a few maneuvers and options that would play differently. But our point is that if you pick up the core rule book, all of the stuff that we've got currently will still work. The hope is perfectly with basically no need to adapt anything. I think right now there are 2 things I've changed the name of that we have a tiny little sidebar that says, hey, if your book says A, we mean B. If it says C, we mean D. And that's it. And they're not things that come up a lot. And we've got an alarm going off in the background, so people forgive me. So the hope is that we will have this new core rulebook. It's a bigger rulebook. It has more options. It's going to have a setting baked into it that you don't have to use the setting, but we are presenting a specific setting and we're going to be building out from there to create a new game experience that will, except for this book, be compatible with all the previous material. We want to have the best Fantasy Age game that we can. And we think that we have seen ways, there have been a lot more Age games now. There are some very smart developers that have been working on it for quite a while. And I'm told, thanks for turning up the gain on Owen's output. So
Trying to be sneaky, but yeah.
Yeah, they noticed. Apparently I sound better, so they noticed. So the whole idea is that this new game will be just an improved version of the existing game, and we will have better interactions with all the existing stuff. So that is what we're shooting for. And Nicholas Morrow actually has a question. Will there be advice on how to create new settings? So there's already a lot of that advice in the Fantasy Age Companion and in the campaigns book. And so right now, while we will touch on that the same way the basic rulebook touches on it, for exactly the reason that I don't want people to feel like they bought those books and should throw them out, that is still sort of the current advice. Now, when we're going forward from here and we continue to expand our new assumed setting, one of the things that I presume we will do, that I would hope we would do, is say, hey, here's how you can take this thing and integrate it into other settings if you want to. So, for instance, we're going to have a new core island and a new town and new threats and interactions because there are things that we have focused on, some ways that we've approached things that we no longer feel like represent best practices. So the core rulebook will, amongst other things, be our effort to put our best practice foot forward. And we'll want to talk about integrating that stuff in the future. But that doesn't mean that anything that's in the campaign guide is in any way invalidated. If someone doesn't know that this book is coming and they buy the campaign guide and they go back to their friendly local gaming store, hopefully while wearing a mask, the next week, and they see this new core rule book and they don't even know that there was another book coming, I want them to be able to just take it off the shelf and say, okay, when I've got the campaign book and I've got the core rule book, oh, and these work together just fine. So I'm not planning on rehashing material that we've covered outside of the basic rule book in the core rule book, with the exception of taking some of the things from the Fantasy Age Companion, which was very much put together in a, hey, here's lots of things you could add to a game kind of way, and presenting them in a specific way. This is how we are integrating these, and we assume this is how you're going to integrate them going forwards. You can still use other options or the different versions of the same options from the Fantasy Age Companion if you want to. There's still stuff in there that we're not going to touch on. But like, we've taken all of the Magic Arcana from that book and revised them slightly and put them in this book. But if you had picked up a book that says this monster has this arcana from the Fantasy Age Companion, and you are now using the core rulebook instead, it will still have options for those arcana and those spells, so that that doesn't become an unplayable monster, an unplayable character, or anything like that. It's just that some of the options will be tweaked on how they function, but only those things that we describe in this new core rulebook.
Hey, I wanted to
there was also a question from Charlotte Hamilton. Will there be pictures? There aren't going to be pictures today. We are still, and this book isn't coming out till towards the fourth quarter of this year-ish. I'm not the scheduling guy. So we're not revealing pictures yet, because when we get a little closer to things like pre-orders and getting people super excited, we want to have that call to action connected to some of the very pretty pictures that are coming in. I'm super excited to show people some of the art, but we're just not at that point yet. What we are at the point to do is, if people want to be involved in playtesting this new material, there is going to be a way to do that going forward. Charlotte specified, will there be pictures in the book? Yes, the new core rule book will have pictures. It's got a new piece of cover art. Obviously, we'll have a new representative of our 4th class. We may reuse some art. I don't know. Again, that's not something that we fully decided yet, but there will definitely be pretty pictures in the book. Absolutely. So if that's what Charlotte Hamilton needs to hear to buy the book, you will want to buy the book. It will absolutely have pretty pictures. And I've already seen the cover art, which is amazing, and I look forward to showing it to people.
Oh, and I want to do a quick test on how's my audio sounding for folks right now? Is it sounding like I'll let you continue while they answer.
Playtesters, yeah. Okay, so about playtesting. We will have a playtest document Monday, and this is just a PDF that has where the rules are right now. Those have already had some playtesting. They've already had comments from other people in the company. We've taken a look at a lot of the questions. But there are still things that I want to put in front of both existing fans of the game and anyone who is a fan of my work in other games who's interested to see what this book that I have had some influence on looks like, and tell us if they think it's fun. So to get involved with that, what you do is you send an email to Troy, and that's at letsplay@greenronin.com. And Troy, if you are a player but not a GM, or you're a GM and not a player, we may have ways to try and link you up, since so much gaming is being done virtually at the moment anyway. And we've got a landing page to keep track of stuff, and we will want to put out a survey in a bit. But the point is, this will be an opportunity for you to see what that 4th class is, get involved in playing some of the new options, and tell us, does this feel like Fantasy Age? Is this a game that you want to play? Have we made a change that you hate? When we have adjusted things, did we not go far enough? Did we go too far? So it's not the entire rule book, right? Like, you all don't need to know what adversaries are going to be in the new book, because all of your existing adversaries will work fine. In fact, I very much want those adversaries. Nicholas Morrow says, post the URL. What we want to do to make sure that we are in touch with everyone who's playtesting this, so that we can have the best interaction with them and get the fastest, most complete information, is anyone that wants to playtest, send that email. Yeah. It's letsplay@greenronin.com, and we can certainly post letsplay@greenronin.com in the comments here, and when we post up the video, make sure they're there.
And we will definitely do that. But one of the things that I want folks to remember when you're emailing, have an evocative subject matter, not just like yo, because I'll lose it. Give me your name. Give me some context as to sort of your experience and what you, not that lack of experience will preclude you from participating, but I like to know. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, as Troy says, we want to create a playtest community for this. We don't have a ton of time, but if someone is a brand new player or a brand new GM, that's still useful feedback to us. We just want to know who we're dealing with, who we're talking to, and have that point of view when we get your feedback back to us. So if someone's brand new and they say, hey, this was confusing, we can say, okay, that's something we need to improve from the point of view of a new player.
Thank you, Larry.
Charlotte says you're streaming from a hangar bay at the airport again. You were in fact pretty quiet.
Yeah, we'll continue to muck around with that. If it becomes intolerable, do let me know. But
yeah, I can hear you. You're just quiet.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I will make myself louder for sure. But yeah, and also, the really important thing is that you let us know, are you somebody who can step up to be a GM? Are you somebody who can step up to, or who just really wants to play? And if that's you, that's fine too. We just need to know. And of course, GMs, do your thing. Make sure you jump in and sign up. You don't have to do 30 play tests, but a couple.
Yeah. it would be great if we can get people to pick some of the new options, play at different levels, kick some of the new the subsystems in the tires and make sure that they don't fall off and the wheel breaks off and the wagon goes careening off.
Re-kick the tire you kicked already once before. But yeah, it's going to be a blast. Where the goal here is we definitely want to build a community around this, but we are both Owen and I are just surrounded by people who enjoy Green Ronin, playing Green Ronin tabletop products, and you're just brilliant. You're good at what you do. You're smart. You ask the great questions. You're engaged. You know the material. So we want you to be engaged and be a part of this. Let's have some fun and make a good test this in such a way that it makes a good product. And don't be afraid to put some limitations or boundaries on how much time you have to spend. Let me know that in email as well. There's a space for everyone at this table.
And Troy will be doing a lot of that wrangling so that I am free to, to wrangle the words instead of the players.
Yes, yeah.
So we're super excited about this. I think that Fantasy Age has become sort of a mature game system. And this is one of the moments that game companies have to decide what they want to do with their game system, right? It is not unusual for people to do a whole new edition of the game, right? We're on 5th edition D&D, we're on 2nd edition of Pathfinder, we're on 6th edition Call of Cthulhu. And I've been involved in some of the discussions to have new editions of games. Star Wars, for example, right? I helped write the Star Wars Saga Edition RPG, which was the 3rd D20 Star Wars game. And that itself was the 2nd system to ever have a Star Wars RPG for it. And there are good and appropriate reasons to have a new edition that's slightly different or have a new edition that's completely different. But the core of Fantasy Age is still really super effective. So what we're wanting to do is polish some rough edges and expand on the cool stuff in ways that we've thought of since that book came out and create a more fun play experience without invalidating anything you already own.
So Nicholas asks, are you, and I like how it, in parentheses, Owen. Guess what, Nicholas, not for you, only me. I will be running all the test sessions. It'll just be you and me. It'll be really weird.
I have been running playtests of the new material currently. I've got a group that I run playtests with. It is currently unknown if I will be running on, I'll get to that next question in a second, Nicholas, whether I will be running any other playtests. It depends very much on timing and personnel and some other things that haven't settled yet. Nicholas Morrow asked, wait, did Owen do work on the Saga Edition rules for Star Wars? Yeah, I'm one of the co-authors of the Saga Edition Star Wars role-playing game, and I wrote for several of the expansions as well. So yes, I did a lot of work for D20 Star Wars, including being one of the people that created the core rulebook for the Saga Edition.
I like it when Nicholas gets to hang out with us for the whole, for the whole program. That's fun. Thank you, Duke. Duke over on listening via the YouTubes is sent an email. Thank you, Duke, very much. Appreciate that and look forward to talking with you. The one thing I wanted to add, Owen, is we're also asking people who want to step up and run their own games as part of this playtest. They can invite sort of their core group to come and test with them, right?
Absolutely, totally. If you've got people you're used to playing with and you want to be the point person and say, hey, we'll run a playtest and we'll bring these people in and I'll run it with them. Yeah, absolutely. For that matter, Crystal just says she'd love to run something quick. So I think we can probably pass on asking Crystal Fraser, our Mutants and Mastermind lead developer, to send Troy an email. But if she's interested, she said maybe a quick Sorcerers and Speakeasies game. So now I want to play in Crystal's game. So
me too.
Nicholas Morrow just said, I love the Saga Edition rules. Not the move object force power. It's broken as hell. Interesting story. When I ran a game with that at home, my wife took the move object force power, and Nicholas is not incorrect about its ability to break things like enemy tanks and walkers. So you have a keen eye. Will the new rulebook have stats for Tommy guns? The rulebook won't, Crystal, but if you want to run a game with Tommy guns, I will write up Tommy guns and heaters for you to run a game. because that's, I think that and maybe cars are about all you would need beyond the core rule book. Now, if people go super nuts for wanting a magic in the Roaring 20s, right? If you want the ruining 20s as a game, that's something we can do. Or I had suggested an Edwardian age game at one point. So, if we need the core rule book first, where we go from there can very much be driven by what people express interest in. If it's actually the Tommy gun era, I might have to have a war with modern age on which one of us gets to claim the 20s. I'm not sure what the official line break off for when it's fantasy and when it's modern, or maybe we just create a hybrid. But all I'm saying is that these, if the point is that you want a game with elves and dwarves and orcs and drac and beast folk, and you just want them to happen to have Tommy guns, which sounds like half the anime I get ads for these days. That is totally a thing that potentially we could do. And if Crystal's going to throw something together to play test, then that's a conversation we are very much going to have with Crystal. I guarantee it.
I got to say, leave it to TTRPG developers to further complicate the process of testing. I love it. I mean, I love it. And the whole notion of doing sort of a, the Roaring 20s kind of thing is it's got me thinking. It's got my creative juices are flowing. Or would be if I wasn't just a disembodied voice. But my question for you, Owen, is there's a rumor going around that this new class, this unspoken, tightly held secret, is actually War Ferret. Is that a thing? Is that or War Weasel? I think is really kind of the same, right?
It's not a War Weasel.
Okay.
Now, we are going to take the Beast Folk from the Fantasy Age Companion and have a version of them, sort of a little stripped down, simplified version in the core rulebook. And that will include the ability to have, ferret folk or mustelids. So if you want to take one of them and play the new class as let's say, a leader of warlike armies, that would work. That would be a thing you could totally do. So you all can chew on that. I will.
Do you see how hard I'm trying to flap the man? I'm trying to flap the man. He will not be flapped. So could you be like 40 ferrets in a sort of human costume?
As long as you and the GM are okay with it, sure.
I'm sorry, but 40 ferrets in sounds like the title of a movie.
My wife, who's listening, says, 40 ferrets in sounds like the title of an awesome book.
It really does. It sounds like the sort of the title of my memoirs. Let's see. That's right. Okay. Larry Dixon says, I knew it. The secret class is fursuiter.
Larry, I'm sorry to disappoint you. The secret class is not fursuiter, but that's because we think fursuits are for everybody. So we don't want to restrict our mages and our rogues and our warriors by not letting them have fursuits. I mean, arguably, right, Hercules wrapped in the skin of the Nemean lion is like the first fursuit, and that's clearly a warrior. So we don't want to limit people's options.
Duke over on YouTube says stacked ferrets for the win.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when if your fantasy did not look exactly like Lord of the Rings, or if you were edgy Moorcock, people mocked you for doing it wrong. And that's sort of the era when I got on gaming. And weirdly, that is the same era where it was perfectly acceptable for the main fantasy RPG to say, hey, this adventure has a starship that's crashed in the mountains and you get laser pistols. And somehow everyone was okay with that, but we're not okay with the idea of playing rabbit folk. Now, Crystal Fraser says fursuiter does appear in an upcoming Mutants and Masterminds product. So
we got you covered no matter where you go. Yeah.
Now it seems like people are a little more okay, maybe not with bunny folk, but like rat folk and canids and feline folk tend to be acceptable. But if you say, I want to have a musket in my fantasy, anyone that is not used to playing Warhammer miniatures seems to kind of go berserk. So
why?
People don't like the idea of gunpowder mixing with magic. And if that's what a group wants, that's fine. But I think there are people that don't understand just how far back gunpowder goes, technologically speaking.
Yeah, right. wasn't
I'm not here
gunpowder
to tell people
magic? I mean, like people using it in sort of their illusions and their tricks and their stuff or whatever. But the other thing I was going to say is you said something that I think is really important, and that is stop yucking people's yum. If people want to sit and they want to run a particular, sort of campaign, and they don't want, musket carrying bunny folk, okay, fine, that's fine. But if people want it, and Green Ronin tabletop roleplay games are uniquely suited for that kind of fun. So yeah.
Bunny folk are getting so much love in the comments right now, which, given one of our owners is Nicole Lindrus, that is not a great shock.
Yeah.
And bunny beast folk, rabbit hare beast folk, are definitely a thing that the core rule book is set up to support. Because I don't have a problem with that. I think there, some people like peanut butter in their chocolate and some people don't. The only place I think you run into a problem is when you've got a group of players, maybe you've got 5 players and one of them really, really, really wants to play a bunny centaur musketeer fighting for the royal glory of the Warren, and everyone else wants to play Conan the Barbarian and thinks that ruins their fun. And then you just have to have a conversation about, okay, how much of this person's fun are we going to ruin by allowing this? How much of this person's fun are we going to ruin by not allowing it? I personally like to be open and permissive to a point, right? I don't want someone playing a member of a Star Trek engineering away
or a
team.
land jellyfish.
Yeah. Well, no, land jellyfish I can probably get behind.
Hey, by the way, Duke says mouse folk need love as well. So yes,
yeah, totally
recognized.
Rodent folk and mustelid folk in general. So it's worth having that conversation. Crystal is here for a bunny tar musketeer. I think one of the ways that you handle this is you say, okay, we're gonna this game is gonna have this set of paradigms, and maybe we'll run another game that goes to another set. Maybe we'll alternate between 2 games. So I can't fix everyone's intersocial personal problems, but I can say it is much easier for a group of role players to be told, hey, here are the balanced, fun, interesting rules for all these options. Feel free to ignore one, than it is to say, hey, here's a really tightly linked set of options, and if you want something else, you have to make it up, and I hope it doesn't break the game.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's sort of a broad focus of what we want to cover in the core rulebook, and then expansions beyond that, right? I like having gunpowder in my fantasy games. There's a long tradition of gunpowder in fantasy. I mean, what functions as gunpowder is one of the plot points of the Princes of Amber, which is definitely a fantasy series, even if it's one that's a kind of wide-ranging with different levels of technology and realities. But there's a strong tradition of Freeport in Fantasy Age, and Freeport is a gunpowder-enabled setting. Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing, which is one of the old traditional RPGs, has a lot of gunpowder in it, and I really think there's no reason not to look at okay, Chris Pramus has put a picture of bunny folks with bolt action rifles in the comments on Facebook, which are from Gamma World. I recognize them, and wow, were they dangerous in Gamma World.
Oh, Larry real quick says, never hurts to ride media waves as well. So we've got, Red Walls coming, and, that's happening. And, it's fun. Also, David Body says, there's gunpowder in Princess Mononoke. True.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are, and sometimes the emergence of gunpowder is part of the plot of a game. But again, I think it's easier to yes, hops, or hoops. I think it is easier to have that material available and have people decide what they're going to do with it, rather than have us dictate only the following things are allowed for you to have fun, and if you're doing anything else, you're doing it wrong.
What the heck
that
is
is
this?
Never what I want to be saying.
The hoop. I'm looking at this this is is this a tabletop role playing game based on rabbits that are just
They're-
weapon
They
wielding?
are erased from the Gamma World RPG.
That's right. Yeah, this is something else.
Yeah. I mean, there's an entire rabbit RPG out there. There's Bunnies and Burrows. Rabbits have a broad fan base, and there's no reason not to give them ways to have fun.
Agreed.
And, some of this just ends up coming down to tradition. And I understand that. I'm okay with tradition. And there's an argument to be made that sometimes tradition exists because it has stood the test of time. But
Right.
sometimes tradition is just momentum or first to market, or this thing was second or third favorite of the most people, and the first favorites were so divided that they never rose to the top. So I don't have a problem with someone saying they want a traditional fantasy setting. I just want to remind you that can include Tom Bombadil.
The other thing as well is I think that sometimes people take these additions or sort of considerations as an affront, as a larger metaphor for respect and tradition, and like you were saying, but also they kind of pile in a bunch of other sort of things in there specific to being responsible for inclusivity and being open to that notion. And I think that oftentimes getting upset about a gun toting bunch of rabbits, or a rabbit wizard, or what have you. Wow, this is some great stuff. We really opened up the Pandora's box. I was trying to think of some rabbit words, but I don't know any. But yeah, to me, I feel like it is a lot of sour grapes, and it's it just seems more malicious than it needs to be.
One of the things that sometimes happens is that people can decide that they want to be very, very, very serious with their role playing, and that's fine. I think that's a perfectly appropriate way to play it. And sometimes the people that want to play the Kender or the Ewok or the Jawa or the Gully Dwarf or the Tinker Gnome or the Bunny or the Bunny Centaur are people who inherently prefer a lighter, fluffier, sillier game. And when that is the case, in my opinion, telling them you cannot be a Bunny Centaur Musketeer, you must be a Halfling Slinger, that doesn't get to the root of the different kinds of fun people are trying to have, right? What gets to the root is to say, look, if you want to be a Bunny Centaur Musketeer, we can work with that, but we are trying for our characters to be serious heroes and not constantly doing goofy, silly things all the time. And if you choose to do them, you will be treated the way someone doing that down on Main Street might be. People are going to treat you weird. That's not the game we want to play. When I wrote the Advanced Game Mastery Guide, 2000 for Green Ronin, I talked about assumption clash being one of the things that can lead to problems with games. So if someone wants to play an option that you don't want to allow, I personally think that one of the things that should occur at that point is to have a conversation about what do you want, what are your expectations, what are your objections, and just talk about it. I had someone who hated the idea of gunpowder in a fantasy game and had no problem with the problem of alchemical explosive powder that worked exactly the same way as long as we said it isn't gunpowder.
See, that's just silly. Larry says real quick, Reepicheep puts an end to all arguments about small animals being hardcore. Reepicheep?
Reepicheep from Chronicles of Narnia is a musketeer mouse. One of my first fictional cute crushes when I was a child, and a heck of a warrior and a cavalier and a paladin practically. Crystal points out sometimes you just want to feel cute instead of scary, especially when you are scary in real life, or if you're scared in real life, and that's why I think assumption clash can be important. If what I want is to get away from things. I had a friend that ran a Car Wars game that was based on Area 88, which is a mercenaries in planes anime and manga. And so the whole point of it was that you were mercenaries like in the Foreign Legion, except that you had a running debt. And so you were paid for missions, but you had to then use that money to repair your car, buy ammo. And it was a great setup But after playing it just a little while, I discovered I don't like playing a character who's always worried about how he's going to pay the mortgage and fix his car. It's a great setup for a game, but I'm stressing out over this because those concerns are my real life concerns, and I want to get away from them. So, we had a conversation. We said, okay, we played this. We had some fun. I wasn't the only one having that issue, so we stopped and moved on to other things.
I'm looking at some of the links here that they're being shared. Nicole shares a link to what a charming. The name of the site is very charming. The Eye of Joyful Sitting Amongst Friends. Very, very sweet. But is it Usagi Yojimbo?
Usagi Yojimbo.
Yojimbo.
One of the great samurai rabbits by Stan Sakai that goes back to the 80s at least. It's a great book, and it is a wonderful example of how a bunny character can be serious and I think lighthearted at the same time. It's from a very specific era, but it's still popular now. I recommend anyone that likes the idea of anthropomorphic characters not just being played for a gag, watching that. And there's a really short animated short, I think, on YouTube with Usagi Yojimbo and one of his allies who's a rhinoceros samurai. So you can look that up. But
Yojimbo. So real quick, Duke on over on the YouTubes says Mouse Guard is pretty serious too. Nicholas brought up Car Wars. That was one of my first RPG or tabletop roleplay games. That was a blast. You got me. Duke also says, can't spell today. No worries, my friend. Also says early Teenage Mutant Ninja comics were not exactly kid stuff as well. True,
100%. Yeah,
true.
The original comics were very grim
hardcore.
And serious and black and white and hardcore.
And I did not know that. I did not know that until conversations with a big, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, Crystal. Crystal's a big fan, and so that's when I learned there's some. The history was pretty rough. Let's see. Yeah. Larry says, yes, just plain talking about why you're playing is so underrated. Motive is everything, including the reasons why a gamer plays a game. That's great. Yep. Absolutely. And then I think when you hear that reason, I think it also just opens up some empathy, and you can feel like, okay, I get it. I understand that. Oh, yeah. Larry says, Shredder. Is this a spoiler? No, it's in issue 1. But, Shredder was killed in issue 1. But, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very different tone, and it's a Crystal notes she has a passing familiar with TMNT. She also ran a TMNT RPG for several of the Paizo developers while I was working at Paizo, and that was an experience. That was an experience that I recommend to anyone who can arrange for it.
Car Wars plus Fantasy Age. Car Fantasy Age.
Well, and see, that I would totally do as a modern age setting, right? If we were going to do crossbow and
definitely
chassis
modern age,
or machine guns on the blacktop, Road Wars, for example, I would make that a modern age setting myself. Auto age, LJ says.
Auto age. There we go. Sounds like
so I do want I am perfectly, just like I was saying for having fun with a role-playing game, I'm perfectly happy for us to respond to people having fun on the stream and hanging out, but I do want to note that we're getting close to time, so if anyone has any more questions about being part of the playtest, and to do that you send an email to letsplay@greenranian.com, and that'll put you in touch with Troy, or if you have questions you want answered right now about what we are doing with the core rulebook, reach out and let us know, and if you think of it later, you can send those questions either to me or to Troy, and we can possibly cover it next week. So,
absolutely. We can do that, and we can also cover it in, perhaps we'll do some blogging about it. On the,
almost certainly.
Yeah, for the Run Around Table. And listen here, sir, just because my mic was a little funky earlier does not mean you can start doing my job. I'm just kidding. You can. It's kind of nice to sit back and to read and listen.
Ron Yaketa asks a really good question, which is it okay to stream playtests? We're actually asking people not to stream playtests right at the moment because we don't want to confuse people with what the rules will be and people playing during a stream play a little differently than people that play at home. So we want to focus on the playtest aspect of it at this point. Now, if you're interested in streaming a playtest or doing a stream before the book comes out, again, write to Troy, tell him what you're interested in at let's play at greenrunning.com, and we will see if there is a way to work out something that works for everybody.
Absolutely. And I guarantee you, my friend, that there will be opportunities closer to, release. And also as we start to ramp up and we want to share the good word, and we do maybe even a more wider net as it relates to playtesting, there'll be some streaming opportunities. And so, yeah, listen to Owen, send that email, and let's play at greenrunning.com.
Yeah, I told Ron no, and what I really should have said is not yet. But Ron has given us a thumbs up, so I presume he will send you an email. And we are early in the process as far as revealing stuff to the public goes, right? We are not at the here's the cover and here's a pre-order stage yet. And we're not at that stage yet because we want to make sure we have time to take the feedback we get from you and put it in the final book. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this on this stream, right? And I will probably post on my social media, but the point is, this is a group of people who have shown a higher level of interest and interaction in Fantasy Age just because you are listening to my voice and Troy's disembodied voice.
Yes.
So this is your opportunity to say, hey, we have proven that we are highly connected. We're part of the community. So we want your feedback on this game, and we want to build a community and expand the community and keep this conversation rolling.
Absolutely. So I've got a couple things here I want to wrap on. One of them is we definitely consider, Owen, before we pull the plug on the day, there is a request for you to do hey Owen, stat this.
Okay.
And I've got it fired up, but I also want to read this from Larry Dixon over on the YouTube side of things. Owen, I hope you understand what I mean. Is the new material conscious of the third dimension in play? D&D has always essentially been a 2D game, and I prefer to play flyers.
So, yeah. One of the things about Fantasy Age is that Fantasy Age, while you can play Fantasy Age with miniatures, and I tend to because that's my style, it is also designed to not require miniatures, right? You can just figure things in ranges. And when you do that, it is very easy to say, hey, I am flying 60 yards up. And since we do ranges in yards, you can use real world ranges and say, this is how I'm going to drop a rock on him. Okay, well, that's a thrown rock attack. You can obviously reach him because it's down, take this penalty for it being at range, and go. So we are trying to answer that question, that fighting in 3 dimensions, whether that be airborne or on the side of a sieging a castle wall or underwater, by not requiring the level of precise placement at all times that some games require. So, and you can hop back and forth, right? You can say, okay, this is a map where people are going to be on the ground. You're in a cave, you're in a maze, and exactly what corner you're on is important. We're going to draw that out, maybe even just on a piece of paper, and use M&Ms to mark where people are, right? You don't have to go whole hog with, I've posted pictures of some of my playtests where people have seen that I've got terrain and buildings and Dwarven Forge, and I've got that stuff in the game room. I've got friends with even more of it, so we use it, but you don't have to, and you can go to any point in between. So that's how we're trying to address that. Because in my experience, if we start trying to do like detailed dogfight rules, those become an entire subsystem. And if I do Griffin Knights of Hawksmoor at some point as a setting, then we might well put together a stunt-based system, like we're going to have a chase system, and say, this is how we handle that. But the chase system, again, is based on stunts and skill checks. So if you're doing an airborne race through the trees, the stunt system will handle that just fine without having to whip out miniatures and put things on a little 2-inch stand and all of that.
Ron says, got hooked on your work at Paizo, in parentheses, Owen. My work at Paizo is just being ignored, Owen. It's just being straight up ignored.
I'm so sorry, Troy.
Legendary. You have a legendary a resume, and many people are looking forward to this, and I'm excited that we were able to do this stuff. Stan Brown says, gingerbread minis.
So Stan wrote, and Rogue Genius Games publishes a PDF called Gingerbread Kaiju, which is a board game where you literally make giant monsters out of gingerbread, and you eat your enemies. You can bite their arms off, and that affects their ability to play.
What?
The little
That's
candy
so
bars
fun.
and M&Ms and stuff are actually the pieces. So
I'm gonna have to check that out. I dig it. I dig it. Duke says, "Poor Troy." No, Duke. I'm here. I'm here for the fun and the lulls of it all, and a little teasing as well. Okay. Well, so here's the deal. We are 1 minute over. We'll fudge it a bit just because of audio stuff, but there is a request from a dear friend of ours that we stat up the image that opened the program for us today. So I'm gonna transition over there and watch the audio just blow out. But here we go. And you have the video up. Can you? Yeah. Good.
I see it in all of its horror.
All of its horror, yeah.
I don't know if anyone else does, but okay.
They will
so what
see
we
it,
have here is a picture of a collection of rats whose tails all appear to be knotted into a eye-studded pile of dirt, at the top of which is a human-sized eyeball.
You think that's
and the rats look unhappy, or at least angry, and I don't blame them. So then you got to ask yourself, what is it I am statting? Now, the instinct here probably is to stat up that whole mass as a creature, right? To say like, that's a rat swarm or an emperor rat or a king rat. And there are some real world mythological king rat and emperor rats. And when I did a D20 sewer bestiary for gaming paper, I went that route. But I would actually be tempted not to go that route for this. I would instead say what you are seeing there, if I were statting this up, which, I mean, literally I am, what you're seeing there is an evil eyeball that has sucked up rats to it because it doesn't have hands or feet or legs otherwise. And so I would say, all right, let's look at the Fantasy Age Bestiary, which I have right here, on page 58, The Ghoul. And I say the Ghoul because of its special qualities. It's got some favored stunts: knock prone, lightning attack, and mighty blow. I might well focus on the knock prone part of that. And there's a sweeping attack, so you can attack multiple things to give it more of a swarming power. But the thing I really like is tough. Ghouls have a natural armor rating of 3, so you say that the rats literally form armor around the eyeball, and you're not fighting the rats, you're fighting the eyeball, and it's using this living mound of rats as both its body and its armor and its weapon. So when someone hits it, you describe, you're trying to swing at that central mass of goo in the eye, and a bunch of rats jump in the way and squeal.
Nice, Ron. You're onto it. Yeah,
monster.
That's great.
Also has cannibalistic regeneration. If the ghoul has fed in the last hour, it can regenerate lost health. And then instead of being if it has eaten the last hour, you say sewer regeneration. If the evil eye can reach small rodents or similar creatures in the past hour, it can regenerate health each round as it sucks more rats up into it. So then you've got this urge to try and move it out of the way, get it out of the sewer, relocate it to fight it. And then Frenzy. When attacking someone they have bitten, otherwise touched to the flesh of, who's seriously wounded, ghouls may perform the lightning attack and mighty blow stunts for 1 stunt point less than the normal cost. And again, the rats going into a maddened frenzy works well for me. So for stat-wise, I would start with the ghoul. I would reskin these things instead of being this single undead. Say that you've got this evil eye, and I might literally call it an evil eye, and that it is controlling and sucking these small creatures to it. And then once I've done that, I can make different changes based on what creatures it's attract to it, right? Like if it attracts a whole bunch of bats, I would give it a fly speed. If it moves into the water, maybe it attracts a whole bunch of fish and it becomes a tightly packed fish. And it gets a swimming speed. And that's easy to replace. The ghoul has a burrow speed. And of course, for rats, a burrow speed is just fine. And so people end up with the villain that is just this eye. And then all the other mass around it is its enslaved servants that you're trying to get loose from it.
Wow.
And that is how I would stat that.
Holy crap. Well done. I like that name, Reticular Overmind. But holy crap. I love that you went away from the Rat King kind of thing, because that's clearly what's, what this is based on, but that is brilliant. And what a creep show that is. Like, just think about all of these sort of minor pests or things in the world, and then suddenly they become this, burrowing mob of terror. That's something.
And the first time you whip it out, right? I mean, if they're not getting good perception checks, you hear squeaking and the pitter patter of a bunch of little feet.
As you do, yeah.
3 dozen tiny little glowing red eyes, and they're like, "Oh, it's a rat swarm." Well, you think that right up to the point in which rats are bearing forth this eyeball that they are all protecting and jumping in front of, and then if you want to ramp it up a step beyond that, if you want to up the danger level, then you can make it a spellcasting eyeball, and you can start looking at Arcana to give it. Sort of in the beholder vein, that maybe each of its eyes or the number of creatures it has allows it to cast various spells, or maybe the spells it casts are tied to what creatures it has available.
Listen, just a masterpiece, just a sure it is sheer genius, and truly appreciated. It only makes us try harder, Owen. I mean, I hope you know that. We continue to build up our own skill as we bring these things to you, but it's always a delight. Crystal Fraser says the man has a gift. I would say the man is a gift as well. And you share that so readily with everybody. We have a lot of fun on these streams, and to see the, you really do, Nicholas, got to up your game. Everybody, we got to try to flap him. We don't want to we don't want to be rude about it, but try to. I would love to see a near stumping. I don't think we could even come close, just because you just live in a space where you're just like, yes, and you send it right back with some, extra eyeball. But Owen, always a delight. I feel like when we do these, it's the first time we have these conversations. We go into like interesting, new, fun places, and you attract a certain kind of people that I truly enjoy. They are all creative beings, and everybody is included, and everyone gets to have some fun, and that's what ThursdAGE is all about. Contrary to popular belief, it is not about audio issues. That being said,
it's a little bit about audio issues, but it's about audio issues in that we are proving to you that you don't have to get it perfect in order to have fun with it. And that really is, for me, part of the point with this.
Okay, when the man starts to unflap, like he has an area of effect. I am unflapped now, so take that.
The other thing I'll say, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm looking at this wonderful piece of art by an artist I appreciate very much. If I were putting this in my game, I would have an evil necromancer in the sewers and have or just above them, and have the players kill him, and when he died, say that they hit him so hard that one of his eyes pops out and rolls into the sewer, plop, and then wait 3 or 4 sessions, and then have the evil necromantic eyeball, having enslaved a whole bunch of rats to carry it about, show up as that villain, not quite being done with them yet.
That is brilliant. There you go. A little extra cred, a little extra frosting on the on this really hellish cake.
Although if you do that as a GM, you are then training your players to gather all of the body parts of everything they kill from then on and burn them. So,
or just hang on to them for fun.
Yeah, put them in pickle jars.
I'm gonna put them in pickle jars. I'm going to leave us on this cliffhanger. Alex says, "Good luck. I've only ever stumped Owen once." Tune in next week for how Owen was stumped. We come to you every Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific, thereabouts, and on Monday we do Mutants and Masterminds Monday. Remember, if you want to get engaged in the playtest, send that email. Let's play. I almost gave you Owen's email. Let's play at greenronin.com, and tell me a little bit about you. Give me some of your background and your history and things that you'd like to, do you want to run a game? Do you want to participate in a game? Or are you just happy to be here? That's okay too. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, everybody who's been listening and watching. Thank you for your patience. And I look forward to kicking this stuff. We are here. It's happening. Bye, everyone. Folks.